And
What
just like
jewels?
that, we're live. All right, man. Let's start ranting.
To go back before we decided we should probably start the podcast until it was like, before we realized it was 6 o'clock, we actually had not recorded anything. You know, this week, on a macro level, just like when you thought the dystopian nightmare couldn't get any fucking worse, as it turns out, we haven't actually hit rock bottom yet. And the fact that there are photos of flatbed trailers with post office boxes, the mailboxes stacked 4 and 5 high, is just beyond fucked. It's just like it's blatant. We all know what you're doing. It's not like there's anybody here going, I wonder why you would do this.
Right.
You
Plausible
know,
deniability flew out the window a while ago.
exactly. You're doing this for one and one only one reason. And the problem, and one of the bigger problems is not only the election going to be damaged by this if you get your way, but there's going to be a lot of fucking collateral damage. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just the the mailboxes that they've taken out. Apparently, they've been removing mail sorting machines because who the fuck needs to do that, right? Sort mail in a
Oh,
timely
dude.
fashion.
Yeah, so I did see that. I didn't see the flatbeds you were talking about, but since I'm still a denizen of the dark depths of Tumblr, I did see some people talking about the mail sorting machines being decommissioned for reasons. So yeah, the flatbed trucks taking mailboxes away. That's a new one on me. So I'm glad that we at least talked about that.
I will. It.
I'm glad I'm
It.
drinking.
Yeah. No shit, man. No shit. Let me see if I can actually find one real quick. A.
All right, then we can swap back over. Is it on the agenda?
It is not on the agenda just because I didn't think. Okay, this
It's
one
all
isn't
right.
of a flatbed, but it is a picture of these things stacked.
Okay, well, yeah, you can just copy pasta that right into either the images graveyard or the dead horses agenda, and then I'll be able to screen share it.
I mean, oh wait, no, that's not what I wanted to do.
Perfect. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, let
You
me
see
just.
it?
Yeah, I can see it. Let me
Okay.
screen share it to swap over and transition. Thank you, OBS. So, dude, what?
Oh yeah,
That.
no, they've been taking him out left and right. And it's not
Uh,
just one state. They've been taking him out all fucking over. But
dude,
apparently they've said, hey, don't worry, we're not going to take any more out in like these states till
dude,
the election is over. Totes
dude,
promise. Totes promise.
dude. So, what you're telling me is that the fascists are like, hey, we did this, but we won't take any more?
Yeah.
The. the- eh, Wow.
It
Uh,
you know
wow.
yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty sure, I don't know that anyone's done this yet, but I'm pretty sure that if they were to do a map of the US, fucking zoom it in
Mm-hmm.
and just figure out, like, pinpoint where all these mailboxes were taken, I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you they're going to be in uh majority minority areas,
Yeah,
majority democratic areas, you know
because
and
reasons.
because reasons. Oh, these things aren't making money. Well, the post office isn't supposed to
It
make
was
money. It's
never
a
meant to
fucking
make. It's not a
it's
business.
it's, it's a
It's in
fucking service.
it's in the Constitution. Like
Yeah.
talking about like beating a dead horse. It is actually enshrined in the Constitution.
Mhm. That government, like government entities, are not supposed to make money because they are a service, not a
Right.
fucking business.
It's a public good. It's a public service.
And,
Which
and
is
it,
why the military was never meant to make money. It was meant to be a public service. But I digress.
look, we break a couple of eggs in imperialism and colonialism, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and now we
Mm-hmm.
are here where we're at. It
Ooh,
just it
doggies.
happens. But the thing is there's going to be collateral damage if you damage the USPS. Rural areas in America depend on the USPS. They do.
Yeah.
You
Like when I
know.
lived in Missouri too, like if everything was dependent on mail, like
Hmm.
it was lame. So I lived in I don't think you've been there, but there's a place in the Ozarks area called, and I shit thee not, Bland, Missouri. That's
I've
actually the name
never.
of the city. And before it was called Bland, it was called Silver Dick, Missouri. So I guess calling it Bland was an upgrade.
I've never been there. Let me see how close I've actually gotten though. Give me a second.
Well, you can tell you're almost there when you hear the banjos in the distance.
That's a lot of places in Missouri. Let's be
To be
honest.
fair, yeah, yeah. But
Um,
their banjos are actually, so I should say it's a mix between banjos, ATVs, and errant shotgun shells. Um, yeah,
you know what? Okay, so it's in between. It's
it's past
south.
Rolla.
Yeah, it's past Rolla. It is southeast of Jefferson City and
Yep.
southwest of St. Louis.
Or as people in the
So
area call it, Jeff City, which I never quite got on
yeah,
board with. But
yeah.
whatever, whatever.
Um,
Yeah,
so the closest I've been to Bland, Missouri, is driving down 70 to St. Louis.
nice. Well, that's you're living the good life.
Yeah, I've avoided Bland, Missouri.
I wish I
Um,
could say that. My hands are not clean.
but it's important to these rural areas,
Yeah,
and if you damage that to the point, and don't get me wrong, conservatives, not just in this country, but this is very much a conservative trick.
yeah.
We're going to underfund something so much to the point where it doesn't work, hold that up as evidence that it never worked, and then bring in private firms that are going to basically make a profit off of that. What do you think's going to happen to Bland, Missouri, if like UPS fucking takes over and
Oh
starts
my
charging
god,
to make a profit?
that's literally the Plutocratian daydream. Like they want everyone to be in a situation where corporates run the world, and that's literally like the dystopian view of the future that we've been trying to avoid for so long.
You know, I'm actually hopping on this train now. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. If you're going to bring me Cyberpunk 2077 in the year 2021 ahead of schedule,
Yeah.
fuck it. I am on board now.
Well,
You know what?
I better get my arm upgrades and everything else in place too. That's what I really want.
I'm going to fucking sleeve into other fucking human beings. This is going to be amazing.
I'm gonna be chipping in. I'm gonna be chipping in. So I also wanted to share on a related note the thing about traversing abstracts. A long-standing dead horse topic. Like we're as people, we end up traversing abstracts and trying to find ways to say things without saying them. There was this great screen capture that I saved in another presentation for another friend about how political conversations have changed.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to find it so that I can share it on our horses. Oh, I can't find it, can I? Of course I can't. Well, anyway, the main idea of it was you start at one time where you're being very open and honest about how racist you are about things, just being blatant and saying every possible slur about a group, but then you get to a certain point where you're talking about different housing laws, redlining being one of them, of course, which
Yeah.
separates people, and you're talking about states' rights, and you're talking about all these different whataboutisms, and you never actually have to get to the point where you're speaking out directly against the people you're hurting, but the end result, the outcome of your actions, hurts them even more than if you were openly racist.
And so my whole theory on this is, the best way that I can explain this, or the example that I will use is yes, historically and even today that is still used.
Oh yeah.
The whole well, we think that our children shouldn't, we shouldn't have
Think
to
of the
pay
children.
for, yeah, no, and that is a very common thing. Well, think of the children. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what you're not saying is think of the white children.
Right.
Because
That's what
that's
goes.
really
Yeah.
that's really what it's about.
Right.
But
That's the
I
dog whistle
remember
part of it. Yeah.
I remember several years ago, this coffee shop that I like to go to, and I don't go to anymore because I moved out of the area, and I'm not waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning just to go to get a breakfast sandwich and a chai and come back home. That no way is that happening. I
Yeah.
don't work third shift anymore.
Right.
And the owner was openly a lesbian, and there was somebody on her Facebook who basically made this comment about, I don't agree with your lifestyle, but I tolerate you. And I went, there's a problem with, she asked me, do you think that there's a difference between tolerating someone and actually just loving someone for who they are? And I'm like, there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
The right uses the word tolerate because that's the only way that they can safely say, I fucking hate you, without the rest of society going, you're a shitty fucking person and you should feel bad.
Right.
It's their code word.
It's their
And what-
political correctness.
No, it is their political. It is their political correctness, and the thing is you can tell me you think it's for religious reasons or whatnot, but the rest of society has gone. This isn't cool. This isn't right thinking. This isn't progressive. You're being a shitty person, and their feelings get hurt. It's the same thing with the racists now that they have to be, on the down low.
Well, some of them are on the down low, but others are even more emboldened to be dicks in public, which is incredible.
This is true, and we have the current administration and the current environment to thank for that. But before that, it was very much if I say what I actually think, if I call someone, the N-word, or, slur against Mexicans, or, whatever, people are going to tell me that, that I'm wrong, and that's going to make me feel bad. They're going to confront me, and that's going to make me feel bad. And that's really what this is about, you know?
Yeah, it's about saving their feelings.
It's part. I don't want to say all about. It's partly saving their feelings, but it's also partly furthering their agenda now that they can't do it just out in the fucking open.
Right. They've got to find a way to adapt their tactics so that they can still get the same outcomes.
Yeah. And I mean, part of it too is also, it is also recruiting new people, because when you say, redistribute the wealth for schools, well, that doesn't seem as racist to your average suburbanite,
Yeah.
And 10 years later they wake up, and they're thinking, what am I doing wearing a white hood? I just wanted to dip my toes in, and next thing you know, I'm a full-blown racist.
Right. It's the boiling of frogs. The frogs don't know they're going to die if they stay in the water. For them, it's just a nice jacuzzi.
I mean, and the funny thing is it wasn't so long ago where people openly talked about how they felt. I mean, you go back and watch old videos in the 60s during the civil rights era where they were integrating schools and they were busing kids in. Mm-hmm. And there were people like just talking to news cameras, openly saying things that today just make you go, really, Janet? Oh my God. And I think one of the things that always blew my mind the most is God is against integrating. And I'm like, really? Did he actually say that to you? Where did you get this idea?
Well, the answer these days is Reddit, but I'll save that horse for another time.
But, the thing is it wasn't this long ago. And
no, it wasn't at all.
Unfortunately, white supremacists did learn, and they did.
And they adapted. They became the alt-right instead of just being flat racist.
Well, yeah, and I mean it took several iterations to get them to the alt-right, but they got there eventually. And now it's I do agree that it is much harder for society, for a variety of reasons. It is much harder for society now to just look at those people and go, okay, that is just blatantly racist, even though you're trying to hide it. It is harder to combat that. And therefore, I will agree. These people are now doing more damage, now than when they were just openly racist, because then you could just go, Cletus, shut the fuck up, you racist fuck.
Right. Right.
We can't do that now, because now it takes a lot more time and effort and vigilance and educating people and having debates. And that's, I think, the worst thing is that the alt-right is at a point where they've tweaked their verbiage and their talking points enough, and they've learned enough about pseudo-intellectual ideas that they can sit there, and if they really want to, they can just mire you.
Oh yeah,
down.
They can scallop you until you're mentally exhausted and you really can't do anything more because you're drowning in their bullshit.
Except punch them in their fucking face, which I'm not advocating violence, but I'm just saying punching a fucking white supremacist in the face really should not have any fucking jail time along with it. I'm just saying. It
probably shouldn't. But, I not that I advocate for violence openly. I would rather people come to an understanding, but also realize that some points of view are indefensible because their points of view are antisocial and just anti-human. I found the quote I was looking for too, so let me transition back.
Okay.
And I put it on, so it's over on slide 5 on the dead horses images. Okay. This is one thing that's been represented a lot. So it was Lee Atwater who said this. He was the Republican strategist. Yeah, like this is
Lee.
Yes,
Lee. Oh.
I had to to the.
Yeah, no. I remember. I've actually seen.
Yeah.
I've seen a video of this basically where they talk. He basically lays out the entire fucking strategy.
Yeah. Well, talk through this. I have to go to the restroom real fast, so like rant on this. I'll be back before you can finish.
Okay.
Do it.
I mean, so basically, Lee starts out 1954. He's basically saying in 1954, you can be as racist as you want. You can go out in the town square, basically call every colored person, every name in the book that you saw, and, hey, no problem. Civil rights comes around. He's like, you can't say that anymore. It hurts your cause. It backfires because people rightly call you out for being a racist fuck. So then you start saying things like forced busing, states' rights, and all of that stuff associated with the changes made by the civil rights era and the civil rights movement, I should say. And at that point, what you're talking about is you abstract the idea down to, cutting of taxes and the economic side of having to do these things. And if you can get that across and you abstract the idea down far enough and you mire it down in economics, the outcome, if you can pull these things off, hurts blacks more than it hurts whites. And basically, Lee Atwater's point was, and he gave this interview in 1981, is if you abstract the idea down far enough, you're basically coding the language, and you can get away with anything. Well, you can get away with a lot, and you can solve "quote unquote" racial problems one way or the other.
Right.
And basically, he's a reprehensible human being. Unfortunately, if I'm not mistaken, he's dead.
I'm pretty sure Lee Atwater's dead by this
Yeah,
point.
I'm pretty sure he's dead.
So if he's dead, he's definitely open to be beaten as a dead horse.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things where it's just another racist fuckhead who, okay, we're going to use this system. And this is something I do want to talk about, this idea of, the claim by the alt-right that the left is being intolerant, So philosophers have actually had this whole like they've done this mind game. The problem is, let me rephrase this.
Mm-hmm.
A tolerant society cannot tolerate intolerant views because intolerant views will eventually destroy that tolerant society. That's just how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? Yeah, the left is intolerant of certain ideas because they're not fucking valid.
Well, because they're bad. They're bad faith arguments.
Yeah, they're bad faith arguments. They're not just bad faith arguments. They're also
some of them are openly destructive. So
they're openly destructive. They're openly harmful to a certain group of people.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. That's not a tolerant society for you to sit there and be able to dispute that. Hey, I think that all blacks should leave the country for reasons.
Right, or like the entire eugenics thing. I mean, that was actually enacted by certain groups we're not going to talk about right now, but. If you think that someone shouldn't exist because they have some sort of a medical pre-existing condition, or they've been deemed feeble-minded, or they're weak of body, obviously they're weak of character, so they shouldn't be part of the gene pool type thing. That's not.
We can do an entire fucking episode on America's love of eugenics before it became unpopular, and how we swept that under the rug and nobody talks about it.
Well, because there were people that talked about it. There are people that put it into action too, and people are very quick to forget that there's a place where the Nazis got a lot of their ideas from, and it's kind of close to home.
Well, if you also look at not just the places where they got it, but the people they were getting this idea and the money and the accolades,
right.
It was all upper crust. Yeah. It was all upper crust America. And I'm just saying that that's kind of like waging war against people by basically saying you don't have the right to fucking exist. And we're really interested in like getting out the criminal elements. And isn't it weird that the criminal elements are all Jews and blacks and Irish and Italians?
They're all these othered people.
And, these other people. And it's just like, holy shit,
It's kind of like that idea about the broken windows doctrine. If you can make everything look good on the outside, it has to be good on the inside. So we can't have broken windows, we can't have dirty streets. What we need to do is stop and frisk every last minority to unbreak these windows.
I mean, that just sounds perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, it is, obviously. That's just how you make the streets better. I was looking at I had to bring it up, the broken windows theory as explained by Wikipedia, because there's places where people write things. Oh, and they actually did mention stop and frisk as part of this too. Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Because if you harass minorities long enough, they won't show up in your part of town, and that makes it safer, right? I mean,
Oh, I
that's how
mean,
that works.
it's also a great
Because
precursor to gentrification because I mean, it's not gentrification if they happen to leave of their own. What was the Trumpian saying? Self deport.
yeah, self-deport. Well, that's also a huge that's also a huge thing of the alt-right. You know, we need a white ethno state, but we're not going to do it by violence. So we're
Right.
just going to kindly ask everyone to fucking leave. Yeah, you let
Yeah,
me know
because
how that works out for you, Sparky.
yeah, because that
You
worked so
know,
well last time, didn't it?
well, it
Trail
it's
of
such a
Tears, anyone?
disingenuous. Well,
Jesus Christ.
and that actually brings up that's another entire.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Well, we'll get there eventually. We've got a
no,
lot of
well,
horses to beat before we even
no,
get there.
we do.
Oh
Um,
man. Oh man.
but this idea of the whole stop and frisk policy and then gentrification and this idea that it's like something got said in America gods Mr. Nancy said it
Yeah.
Anansi
Yeah.
and it was like people believe U.S. society believes that white people are inherently good, that we don't commit crime, yada yada.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but if you look at like all the people at the tops of these financial institutions, that led to the Great Recession, most of those people were white.
Yeah. But
So
it's so enticing to want to blame other people. Because it's
well, it
obviously
is,
their
but
fault. It's bad character. It's all these welfare queens trying to move up and then get these balloon loans so they can get these houses and live on someone else's dole. That's obviously who the villains were. Obviously.
well, and to a degree, I do think that like part of the problem there is you had people that were signing papers that had no idea. Like,
Yeah, the financially illiterate. Like
yeah,
you
the
don't do that to
financially
people.
illiterate,
That's
but
horrible.
they were being preyed upon.
Oh yeah. Oh
You know?
yeah. To the point
So-
where it became
so-
a problem for everybody because
No,
wow, man.
exactly. But also if you look at the vast majority of serial killers are white. If you look at
They're number one there. That's for sure. They're definitely
yeah,
number
no,
one.
we are definitely number one. So this idea
Well,
that white
you,
people,
but yeah, you can
yeah,
keep that.
well, exactly me. Yes, that's right. But this idea that white people are inherently good, and if we just get rid of the minorities, everything will be fine. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how far removed from reality do you need to be for that to actually make sense?
Well, remember one of the things we put on the agenda was the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's one of the answers for sure.
Well, I mean, it is to a degree, and my problem is, so, we were talking about abstractions, and I guess in a way we still are.
Mm-hmm.
The Dunning-Kruger, I think, is accurate, but the problem is there are so many other answers that go into that when that question is asked.
Oh yeah,
And
it's not
the
one
problem
thing; it's
is-
everything.
A lot of people like to just hold up Dunning-Kruger effect, and I'm like, but there's more to it than that.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that is a huge part of it. Trust me, I've seen this in working action before, where it's just like, wow. Like some people would argue, that we're seeing that now with 45, and I do think that is part of it. But I think another part with the current administration is, the people working for him that are giving him these ideas that know full well what they're doing.
Right, all the enablers.
All the enablers. The fact that Trump had wealth and a very powerful father.
Yeah.
So he's never really dealt with any consequences, and he's never really had to be smart because he's got wealth.
Like there's been no reason for him to ever invest points on that part of his character sheet. If he just puts everything into charm and superficial, salesmanship, that's all he's ever had to do. He's failed up so high that there's nowhere else for him to fail up to.
No, exactly. And the thing is nobody's going to tell him.
Right. Nobody's gonna hold him accountable.
Nobody's going to. He's a lot like George Lucas at this point. Nobody's going to tell him, "Look, sir, your movie sucks."
Right. And if they do, he's just going to find reasons to invalidate their criticisms.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, the head of I want to say it was the head of the CDC and the deputy director of the CDC, who were Trump appointees, have basically resigned because Trump said that they were not loyal enough.
No, so there's a couple things. That may have been the case, but you reminded me of another story I saw where there were Trump appointed officials that had to be pulled because they violated the law, they weren't actually qualified for the Department of Homeland Security roles that they were promoted into.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that. I was also bringing up the other the big dead horse I wanted to talk about, the Herman Cain post-mortem tweets. but go on. Let's finish this dead horse first.
No, it just goes to show you that at this point there really is no chance to interrupt that echo chamber.
Yeah.
Because he's got his yes men in there. If his yes men aren't quote unquote loyal enough, he'll just get rid of them and find more fucking lackeys to fill the fucking role. Because at this point, I'm cynical enough to believe that these people that are accepting these roles realize that they can cash in enough before the whole house of cards comes down.
Oh yeah.
So they are definitely
that's completely reasonable. Yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
take
it's
that
like,
money and run.
Shit. Which brings us to Herman Cain.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and before we do Herman Cain, I do want to share a screen on what I was talking about, and I'll do a readout for you because you'll only see this when it gets published. So, transitioning over, top DHS officials at the Department of Homeland Security are serving unlawfully in their roles, the Government Accountability Office said this Friday. So, that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and for the CDC, it was the chief of staff and the deputy chief of staff left after White House officials said they were not loyal enough.
Wow. Yeah, so like the CDC, the current administration has essentially taken them out of the equation to be able to track numbers. One of the most important things we can do if we're trying to track the spread of a global pandemic. But, who needs facts when you have feelings?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's good enough. So Herman Cain, the dead horse. This has to be this is the shining superstar dead horse of the week.
We really should be shining dead horse superstar. No. So I read the article and I'm going through it, and then I get to the part about his family and I'm like, there it is.
Yeah.
Hey, our dad's dead, but you know what? There's still opportunity here to beat his dead corpse into the ground and make money off of it. And that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
As long as they can get any amount of funding from the conservative side, they're going to just keep pumping out garbage.
Yeah.
Because it's all about getting money. It's about getting paid. It's not about your dad's legacy. It's about you people getting money. You don't care. The fact that his legacy was important, yada, yada, yada. Really? You expect me to believe that? The fact that you're still leaving his name on it just tells me that you're trying to cash in. And really, I think I'm not going to say that that's how I view the entire conservative movement or the entire right at this point, but it's getting close. How do I fuck over my neighbor to get another couple of shillings in my pocket?
Right. A lot of that changed strategically when Newt Gingrich decided to change the platform and essentially call Democrats and any other possibility of opposition, labeling them as traitors, not as partners or people that also have the best interests of this country at heart. By framing everybody as the opposition, they've created the bulwark we're in now, where everybody that doesn't agree with you is your enemy inherently, instead of someone you could possibly work with and compromise to make the world a better place. But I digress.
Oh, and no, exactly. And Newt Gingrich, there's a special place in whatever fucking afterlife I choose to believe in for him. I'm not going to say he was the start. He was definitely a figure. He was
the start in the modern movement and push that
in the modern movement. I will totally give you that.
Yeah, there are horses older than him that did similar things. I'll give you that, definitely.
Well, Newt never met a horse he didn't want to fuck. Okay, I'm just saying.
So right here, right now,
and he's not dead, so I'm not wishing death upon him.
Right,
but
you just wish him a healthy, sexually active life with horses that may or may not be alive, which is completely reasonable.
It is.
Yeah.
But this whole movement, and there's part of me that really wonders:
does he want that horse ass like you want that horse
ass? I'm just.
These are the questions. These are the questions.
You've seen how many wives he's gone through. I'm just saying. But part of it is also, for them, it's the grift. This idea that we're going to label all these people the opposition. There's a part of me that really wants to ask these people, and I know I'll never get a legitimate answer, and so why bother asking the question? But did you honestly think you could keep that tiger tamed forever? Or
Yeah.
did you ever wonder at what point does it get away from us? Like now,
Well, I think it was
you
by
know?
design because at a certain point, like all of this is like super predictable. You know,
No, it is.
if anything, Geese Howard is the third character on this podcast. He's always waiting in the wings, waiting to yell predictable because oh boy, is it mad predictable.
No, it is, and the thing is you saw it before. Now you saw it with the Tea Party, with the whole
I know.
"we're not going to compromise," and
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
people are enemies, and I'm like, that's not a legitimate, rational response to a
To
democratic.
anything. That's
Well,
not
to
how that's not
anything.
how adults respond to conflict or problems. Like you shouldn't say, well, you're obviously not an American. You're the opposition. You're the enemy. You're the other. And where was that talk? Where did that come up before? If only we had historical examples and something to draw conclusions from.
Yeah, I and that's that whole mindset, that whole attack, that whole thing, and the way it devolved into what it is now, because it de-evolved. It did not evolve, it de-evolved.
Oh yeah.
um there's part of me that goes, this is why I think that moving forward is going to be so hard, because there are some people, and this will get into other parts of the things that we linked in the in the meet the notes,
Yeah, the agenda, our agenda,
agenda,
obviously, because we have an
um
agenda.
that is so easy and so intrinsic for them to just latch onto and never ever let go. The reason why I am at where I am at my life isn't my fault. Oh no, it's those other people. It's the enemies. It's the Democrats.
Right.
It's the minorities.
It's a scapegoat of the moment.
It's a scapegoat of the moment. The problem is they blew. Well, not even. I'm not going to say the problem is now that they blew it up so big that everybody's under that umbrella, because you shouldn't have that to begin with, unless it is a legitimate fucking enemy.
Yeah.
Someone literally trying to end your fucking life, or
Or let's say if a hypothetical situation wherein a high-ranking official was compromised by a foreign power, and instead of serving the best interests of their own country, does words and actions and deeds that end up benefiting a foreign hostile power. That could be a problem, couldn't it? Or maybe that doesn't apply if you're the current president of the United States.
Well, not just the current president, but look at Michael Flynn,
Oh boy, do I
a
have
man
to?
who wore the fucking uniform.
Oh yeah, he pisses me
went,
off, and he deeply pisses me off.
and he bit up time for me to like cash out, and I'm like, so if if you can just turn off that like little morality switch in the back of your head, which I guess,
and then you turn on the let's make money switch, or otherwise known as capitalism.
you know, um, that to me is just like holy shit. Not even talking about 45.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at 45 and you look at just all of the deals that have been made, and even the possibility that Russian oligarchs have been just using him to launder money.
Oh yeah, and every other despot that he tries to buddy up with, like,
exactly.
They all know he's exploitable, and they've all had their turn with him.
He is definitely like the village bicycle,
and he wants it. He wants it so bad. He wants that golden shower because everything that glitters is gold.
Well, it gets to a certain point, I guess, where
what happens in St. Petersburg doesn't always stay in St. Petersburg. Just saying.
Well, this is true. And at the same time, there's part of me that goes, how fucked up was his childhood that this is what he turned into?
Dude. Yes. So that new book by his, I think, cousin niece? Or something like that, a niece. Yeah, maybe.
No,
niece.
I think he is niece.
Yeah. Wow.
But there's part of me that goes, behind every evil person, there's got to be a story. How did they get to that point?
Oh, right.
And
there's an origin story. I'm not trying to use humanize but there's a reason. Like these things don't just happen overnight. Is the point we're getting at.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sit here and try to humanize and be like, oh, we should all feel sorry for 45, because I don't.
Well, I mean, I pity him, but I don't feel sorry for him.
Well, exactly. I do pity him. The man has done enough evil and enough fucking harm, and is trying to end like our way of life, like the legitimate American way of life. And I feel very, very weird saying the legitimate, the whole, I want an open and inclusive society. I want everyone to be treated equal.
Well,
I want to actually address the last 400 fucking years.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we actually had a way to do that.
and go, okay, bad shit happened.
Well, it's also
You know,
weird that we're in a situation where a statement like, "Hey, maybe we should do all that we can to help people not get infected by a global pandemic," is a controversial statement.
exactly.
Like we shouldn't live in that reality, and some of us won't be able to live in that reality. In fact, over 150,000 of us aren't able to because
Actually,
yeah,
CDC, no. John Hopkins reported yesterday 162 plus thousand.
yay, we're number one again.
USA, USA. And so I got I went and got a haircut yesterday. First haircut I gotten since like February. I'm a lot less shaggy now. I feel better.
Well, you better get that
But I was sitting
webcam
there
and get
talking.
oiled up, boy. We got to get them views.
Woo!
We got to get
Yeah,
them
no shit.
views.
Daddy's got to shake his moneymaker. But I was
Exactly.
sitting there. I was sitting there talking to the woman who cuts my hair. She's a
Mm-hmm.
really nice lady. I have really wonderful talks with her, and she's like, it is just sad that you see how much worse the U.S. is doing with coronavirus compared to the rest of the world,
Right.
and also you realize, she said, she's like, I used to believe that there at least was a core of goodness in everybody. And she's like, this pandemic has pretty much just destroyed that. There
Yeah.
isn't.
Because I mean,
You know,
as an optimist, I still say that I'm an optimist, but I'm also a pragmatist about things. I still do believe that humans are inherently good, or they start that way. But there's something that happens when they've been given the Skinner box, that feedback loop, that echo chamber that feeds into an alternative view of reality, thereby perverting and changing them into what were once good and decent people into what we have now.
raging assholes. That's what I'm going to go with.
Oh, that
Raging assholes.
yeah, RAs that'll work.
Exactly. RAs. This is now nomenclature for the Dead Horses podcast. Raging assholes. RAs.
I'll add that to
Hey,
the list.
and I have to agree with her. I do think that at a certain point that this whole kind of like, yeah, I used to believe, or I wanted to believe that deep down inside people would do the right thing when it came down to it.
Well,
And
like what Churchill said, you can always count on America to do the right thing only after
they
they've tried everything else.
exactly. So I'm like, what else? What else do we have? What
Where's the
else is
bottom?
on the list?
Where's the bottom?
What? Yeah, exactly. Where's at the bottom?
The bottom is
I'm
littered with
like,
dead horses. Spoiler alert.
I hate to say this because I'm afraid that we'll go this way, but I'm pretty sure there are witch doctors in Africa. And I use that phrase because
Because my wife is from
they've
Africa.
actually, well, not so much, but when you read stories of of governments in Africa who will basically hire pseudo doctors,
Right.
because I can like create gold out of thin air, or I can do this, or I can get rid of the AIDS epidemic by
Uh-huh. By
whatever.
magical thinking instead of
Yeah.
actual
So
science.
I'm sure that if we hire, we could still hire some of those people. The U.S. could still hire some of those people.
Well, you know that the
I'm just saying it's on the list.
the U.S. either officially or unofficially has already done that. Remember that so-called news conference where they had I'll use the low context phrase, Doctor Demon Sperm. Remember?
Oh, I had forgotten about
that's
her.
I know because it's only been a week. Uh, yeah,
Jesus Christ, it feels like a lifetime.
dude, I know. I've been walking this desert so long. I am the horse with no name.
I was
am
going to say,
America.
I've been looking for the horse with no name. I'm also looking for the singing bush and the invisible horseman. So if you see him, let me know.
There's an entire pantheon of mythical creatures we're going to come across here in Dead Horses, so strap in.
But no, you're right. We have actually done that. So what's
Yeah,
next?
it's already happened. That's literally a dead horse tactic. It's already happened.
I mean, are we still supposed to put fucking like peel some potatoes and put them in our socks overnight and boom, the COVID's gone?
No,
like
it's everyone knows it's garlic. Don't
okay,
be a
fine,
rube.
garlic.
It's garlic because
But
that
you-
keeps the vampires and the Avon lady away.
I dated a couple of girls that have sold Avon.
That's a different podcast.
Yes, that is a different podcast. But you see my point, and I know you made it too. It's like, I understand what Churchill was saying,
Yeah.
but I'm like, that list has gotten a hell of a lot longer.
Mhm.
And we're at 162,000 plus people dead.
As of this recording. Which is going to be
As of
sad
this
because like
recording,
we're going to have these little drops to come back to them later as of this recording
as of
to,
this recording,
to see just how bad it's gotten.
as of this recording, the weasels have risen up and have killed their, human overlords or whatever. It's just, it's it really starts to grind on you where you're like, I thought people would be better than this.
I would want to hope that people are better than this. Yeah, because and what's sad is like we have America is not an island all unto itself. There are other countries in the world, believe it or not, where people have actually band together, helped each other out of a spirit of, if anything, self-interest to see tomorrow. If that's not enough for you, I don't know what more I could possibly tell you to and that would make you want to be a responsible adult. Because if children aren't enough for you to care, if your pets aren't enough for you to care, if basic human dignity, if the promise of being able to wake up tomorrow isn't enough for you to want to be a better person, I am almost completely out of any tactics aside from forcing you to stay in your home under threat of death.
No,
and I don't want to go there. I don't.
Well, the amount of like police departments that would argue with you because unfortunately,
like Florida, like that one sheriff in Florida who actually banned his people from wearing face masks because that's the smartest thing to do when you're a sheriff in Florida.
Well, my question is I'm like, what gives you the right to actually make you're not
you're
a sheriff. You're not a medical expert. You're just
dude,
a sheriff.
But he's a sheriff in America. Sheriffs have a lot of power. There was a John Oliver episode, several, I'm going to say years, it wasn't years, but like several months at this point back, where he was talking about the undue power of sheriffs in America, and that's an exact example of why it's a problem.
Yeah.
They're the law of the land.
And to go along with your, trying to appeal to people, even if you try to, like, do you realize the longer we limp along, the worse the economy is going to get?
Oh yeah, there's that too. Like if self-interest wasn't enough, if capitalism wasn't enough for you to care,
the fact that you can't even appeal to their base needs and desires, and they're just like, yeah, whatever, fuck it, YOLO, and it's just like, well, what do you do at that point?
Well, you watch the world die, obviously.
Yeah. And God, there's not enough alcohol in the world for that. I don't think. I mean, I'm willing to try.
I have tried. It's great so far, but still, like it still leaves me wanting.
I'm just saying. The only thing is with science, you need 3 data points for a baseline. So we're gonna have to do this 3 times.
Well, this is 2 out of 3 actually. So if we're thinking about just since 1918. Another funny thing about 1918. So when the administration had talked about it earlier in a press release, he had said, if you look back to 1917, when this happened before, there must have been so many people sick that it stopped World War II. I almost died of an aneurysm when I heard that. I could not believe I was hearing this coming from the so-called leader of the free world. It wasn't 1917. It was 28. I'm sorry. I still live in the now. That's my problem. It was in 1918 when they had that humongous pandemic called the Spanish flu. Mm-hmm. And World War II didn't end until 1945. It didn't end in 1917. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God.
And oh my God. It's one of those things where it's like, part of being a human being is knowing when you do know something and knowing when you don't. And
right, delegate, motherfucker, delegate.
Delegate and read your fucking prompt. That's all I'm saying. You would sound like less of a dumbass.
Put a quarter in the machine to continue, and if you can't do it, outsource that part of the presentation to someone who's competent. Just because you've been on TV before doesn't make you uniquely qualified to entertain the masses during a pandemic.
No, I agree. And, part of the other problem, and I've at least read like comments about this, and it may or not be true. He needs glasses and should be wearing them, but he thinks they make him look like, a sissy.
No, he thinks, exactly. He thinks they make him look weak, which was his entire one-pointed, one-dimensional argument against wearing a mask, which is the same thing that fascist leaders do, because they always want to exude this American Psycho level of understanding when it comes to what is strength and what is weakness. American Psycho was a great movie, by the way. Oh, that wasn't me. That was Perch in the other room.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, bless your wife.
This mic looks really well.
No, it does. I can actually hear her load the gun before she kills you now.
I know, right? She is a hallway, a dog, and a bedroom away, and you were able to hear that. That's pretty impressive. So shout outs to Blue Microphones. I have not outgrown you guys yet. To paraphrase a great movie, I don't know how to quit you.
Ah, this
Let it wash over you, like so many dead horses.
no. So the Dunning the video you showed on the Dunning Kruger effect, and then I
Yeah.
showed you the John Cleese video, and I
Which
like
was
Cleese just.
great.
I like it because he pretty much just sums it up and he goes, "Stupid people, dumb people," and at a certain point, I don't want. Calling someone stupid or dumb, you're basically reducing them down to this.
Right.
There are people who've never heard about something before.
Yeah. Well, classical ignorance or academic ignorance is different than forced or self-imposed ignorance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I'm ignorant of a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff I don't know, but I'm also aware enough to know that I don't know.
Exactly. So if somebody asked me to help them shut down a fucking nuclear reactor, I'm not going to be like, well, I've seen an episode of MacGyver where he sort of like, no bullshit. There's an episode of MacGyver where he like shut down a nuclear reactor with a Snickers bar.
Wow.
I'm not. I would never say I got this, yo.
Right,
everyone chill the fuck out. I got this. I would never say that.
Well, that's why we have MacGruber.
Yeah, that's why we do have MacGruber.
Yeah.
But there comes a certain self-awareness.
Yeah.
So there is a part of me that, I like the John Cleese video because he does kind of reduce it down to its bare bones.
He did it in under a minute too. It was fantastic.
He did it in under a minute. It was beautiful. But at the same time, there's part of me that goes, calling somebody stupid or calling someone dumb, unfortunately, leads to connotations, and we shouldn't judge people. And that's the only reason why I feel kind of bad about that.
We shouldn't incompletely judge people. We should judge people based on their words and their actions. And in situations where those two things don't meet, we should definitely judge them. But we shouldn't arbitrarily judge them.
Fair enough. Good point. Good distinction.
That's the way I live life, at least.
And then we get to the Alan Watts video that I linked. And I do think that there are many parts about that video that I would like to talk about. You brought up the whole abstraction.
Yeah. Well, actually, you brought up the entire abstraction thing with the video that you put on our agenda. It was great because it went straight to the point of abstractions. That was
with Vonnegut.
No, not Vonnegut.
No,
well, that's Vonnegut always goes to that point. But there was another video that you brought up, and I posted. Let me scroll up because I put it in Discord for you too. Several screen caps. So it looks like a parody of reality, but it's actually reality. Oh, that was when I was making a comment on that stupid commercial I found. There was that video from a channel, Alan Watts.
Yeah, no, that's the one that I was talking about, the Alan Watts video. Where,
the Alan Watts video.
So there are many things about that video that,
Wait, before you say what you're going to say, I've got to say what's wrong with my mind. So I read that as Alan Watts, and my brain decided to autocorrect that to Tom Waits. So when I clicked it, I was expecting to see a Tom Waits video. So I'm an idiot. I'm an actual idiot.
So funny thing, I was actually thinking about this the other day. Alan Watts, philosopher,
also not Tom Waits.
Also not Tom Waits. Focused a lot on Zen and Eastern
philosophy, like Jung did.
Yeah. But I was sitting there thinking the other day, we've got Tom Waits, we've got Alan Watts, and then we've got Reggie.
Reggie Bush?
No, not Bush. I want to say Reggie Watts.
Reggie Watts. Well, let's find out. The internet is a thing.
Yeah, no, Reggie Watts.
Yeah, Reggie Watts. Here he is.
Yeah, and there's part of me that's like, what is it with people with like the last name with the two last letters or two first letters are WAs? Because Reggie Watts also makes these great commentaries about things going on in our societies.
Yeah.
Like when you watch some of his videos and you realize that exactly. You watch some of his videos and you realize that they're actually commentary about rap or just music in general. And, and you're like, wow, let me step back a couple of, spaces and actually take this all in.
Well, he's kind of the Kurt Vonnegut of music. That's kind of what he does.
Okay, I do like that actual.
Yeah, that's how I think about him, at least. Yeah. Yeah.
So the Alan Watts video, there are many things about the Alan Watts videos that we could just chop up and talk about. And each one would take its own. It would take an hour or more. Yeah, exactly, its own pasture. But the one part that I really, just for this, because we were talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect,
Uh-huh.
and I like the Dunning-Kruger effect is good to go, okay, this is one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And there are many pieces of the puzzle why people will go along with somebody who they think is in charge and knows more than them, because
They'll
they
outsource their
themselves,
thinking to someone else.
exactly, they outsource their thinking. They don't know themselves, and rather than go and research it because that's hard or because it makes them feel dumb, and anything that makes us feel stupid in America is stupid itself.
Right,
You
right.
can't make,
It's circular logic.
it is very circular logic.
Yeah. I'm
But
afraid,
the
like,
part where he
one of the
was
screen
talking
caps that I
about,
caught up, like, of being afraid of fear and being afraid of being afraid of fear and so on.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
and
why
and
I
that's
say that
that's
screen cap.
that's
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to talk about, was this fear. And don't get me wrong, Alan Watts is, at least the way I interpret it,
Mm-hmm.
Alan Watts is very much talking about, look, you can have a healthy respect, a healthy respect and fear for certain things.
Yeah.
Walking out in broad fucking daylight right now without a mask and interacting with people might get you killed. You
Yeah.
should probably wear a mask because it's smart. It's
Yeah.
it's pragmatic, and you're also taking care of other people.
Yeah. You're being
Um,
decent.
Being afraid that the Kraken might leap up out of your fucking sink while you're washing your hands, probably not a rational fear.
Right, right.
Probably not something that you ever need to really concern yourself with, encountering.
Yeah.
And those kind of fears, along with other ones, I think is what Alan Watts was talking about. This irrational fear of, the other, and
Mm-hmm.
constantly, well, if you solve that problem, then there's something else, and then there's something else, and then there's something else.
Well,
Where he made that analogy about,
it's cosmic whataboutism.
no, it very much is. And I'm like, like I said, having a healthy understanding of the world and a healthy respect for things that could kill you. Like, I wouldn't walk into a fucking tiger cage if there
Yeah.
were a tiger in it, because that
'Cause
tiger's probably going to kill me.
Well, because you don't live in Florida, that's why.
Well, this is true. I don't live in
Let's be
Florida,
real
too.
about that. Oh, I'm also going to transition over to the slide I just made on the Dead Horse's image drop. The three quotes we're talking about in particular are there. So, and if you're in the if you're in the PowerPoint, you can see it too. I'm sorry, the
So,
slides. Yeah,
the slides.
the
Get it right,
slides.
goddammit. The
Right,
slide.
right. Thank you,
Um,
Google.
So, this idea of, you've got part of the population that doesn't live in constant fear. They're mindful of things, but it doesn't consume them. It doesn't override them. It doesn't become a core of their being.
It doesn't paralyze them from
It
making
does,
decisions.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's good. And then you've got another segment of the population that is they're afraid of everything. They're afraid of Sharia law taking over in the U.S. And it's
Oh,
like, that's
yeah.
not even remotely fucking possible.
Well, it
right
has
now.
to be possible because I live in the suburbs in Connecticut, and I'm scared every single day. Are you scared? I'm scared. You should be scared.
The fact that you have, people in the Christian community who believe it's not safe to be a Christian. And
I
they're
can feel the air
persecuted.
quotes around your words, you heathen.
And oddly enough, I actually said, I did air quotes. when
I
said
know
that.
you did because I know I'm watching you right now. You bad boy. You should have worn
Simp.
pants. Too late. It's on stream.
But this constant fear,
Hmm.
there's part of me that goes, look, man, the world can be a scary fucking place. It
Yeah.
can be.
And fear makes the wolf grow bigger.
Well, the fear makes the wolf grow bigger, but if you live in fear your entire life, you're not really living. You're not really experiencing things.
Hmm.
This whole idea of, like, I'm not going to go to another country because bad things might happen.
Right.
Yes, you need to be
that's
aware.
why I don't want to go to New Jersey.
Well, shit, I've been to New Jersey.
I've been to
let me
New
tell
Jersey,
you.
sadly.
I was
Yeah,
not
go on.
happy. But this. So break it down. I don't want to go to. We will call it.
When you say
shit.
break it down, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Degeneration X theme music. So
Nice.
there you go. There you go. With pyro
But
and everything.
To break this down.
Break it
We'll-
down.
Break it down. We will, call it Country X, wherever you think you want to go
Can it
to.
be Degeneration X just for the fun of it?
Yes, we will call this imaginary country.
It'll be
Degeneration X.
DX for short because we don't want to get
DX.
sued. Yeah, it'll just be DX.
I want to go to DX, but I'm afraid that bad things will happen. Well,
Yeah.
okay, let's examine this. You know,
Are you ready?
okay, you go to DX,
Yeah, you
things
do.
that you should do that all travelers need to do. Make sure that your identity, like the papers for your identity and your passports, make
Papers,
sure that
please.
those are safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not just so if somebody asks for them, you have them, but so they don't get stolen from you. That's a
Right.
common thing, a common sense thing that everyone should do. Same thing with your wallet, your valuables. I hate to say this, but pickpockets are really big in touristy
Oh,
areas.
of course, because everybody
So
there is a
just
sitting duck most of the time.
exactly
They're easy
be
fish to catch.
cognizant of where you are, but don't be paralyzed by that fear.
Right. Be situationally aware. You owe yourself that at least.
Go to DX, embrace your trip, embrace the people, try the food,
Yeah, and
try
prepare
learn
and prepare to
something about
suck
the
it.
culture. Well, exactly. you know, Suck it.
Yeah.
But this idea of living in constant fear, oh, something bad might happen to me. There might be an Islamic outbreaking in country X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, break that down.
Yeah.
Is there a chance? And I don't mean just break that down. If you honestly think that that's the thing, instead of living in fear,
Explore it. Think it through.
explore it.
Yeah.
Actually, the CIA, it's either the CIA or the FBI.
The CIA fact book.
Yeah, the CIA fact.
That's one of my favorite things to reference because it's fantastic.
Be like, hey, what are the chances of another Arab Spring happening? What is the chances of me getting kidnapped by Islamic extremists? And the CIA fact book kind of breaks all that down.
It does a really good job. It's a great reference.
0.0001%, you probably shouldn't worry about it. But be mindful that you don't get yourself into situations where that risk number starts going up,
Yeah. Well, it's due diligence. Like every major company that cares about their people before shooting them over into a foreign country does risk assessments.
There is a cool when we are no longer on when we turn the podcast off, I actually have a question to ask about you. Something that happened at Dell, but I don't. Really
I know. That's exactly what I'm talking about too. That's the hidden horse of this episode.
So, but the thing is it's like people put this emphasis on it when it comes to new things, but they always practice due diligence. Oh, look, I'm going to cross the street. I should wait till the fucking street light tells me that it's safe to walk instead of just walking out there.
Yeah.
That's not me being afraid of being hit by traffic. That's me just being pragmatic and getting hit by a car would probably hurt. I don't want to go out like that. Let me follow the law. But that fear just takes them in, it just takes over their life.
Yeah. It stops them from living their life, which is horrible.
It stops them from living. And when you get enough of those people together, they become a voting bloc and they impede other people. They impede other people's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And that to me is just like, holy shit, you've allowed your fear to manifest, not in reality, but manifest in yourself so much that you found other people that fear the same fucking thing.
Right.
And you're actually fucking up other people's lives by doing it.
Of course.
Holy shit.
That's a platform right there.
No, it is. It is a platform.
Oh, it's bad memes in the academic sense. I mean, whenever I say memes, you can almost always default to my meaning being more academic than lulzy. Although I'm not against the lulls. In fact, I live for the lulls oftentimes. But yeah, like memes, they're mad real, son.
Yeah. Oh, and there was another quote on that Alan Watts. Well, it wasn't really a quote, but he was like a demonstration. He's like, fear's like an onion.
Oh yeah, that was the next part right after these screen caps. That was the thing he went into.
If you keep peeling it apart, you'll be left with like this little thing of an onion. But you're going to zoom in on that because it's your fear, and of course it's going to like eclipse everything else in the room.
Yeah.
So now that onion has grown back to full size, and you'll go back to peeling it all the way down to a little fucking thing, and it once again will just fucking eclipse everything else in the room, everything else inside.
Yeah.
And that's one of the more exhausting things is trying to explain to people that they have nothing to fear, about this one thing. And the second you've talked them through that, they find something else to latch on to where it's just like, Jesus Christ, why did I just waste 2 hours of my life?
Well, it's self-fulfilling prophecy at a certain point. If you look at everything and you always approach every possible challenge with a negative assumption, you'll always be right. Because you'll find a reason to hate it. You'll find a reason to talk yourself out of wanting to try something new. You'll find a reason to stay home you'll find a reason that will always be self-fulfilling and self-satisfying, and you'll never grow as a person.
And this is true, and it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And there's part of me. You left your country
Mm-hmm.
at a young age with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've had all these different experiences. First, living in California,
Mm-hmm.
joining the Marines,
Mm-hmm.
living in Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
living in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
You've had all these different experiences, and I think to these people that I've met, all these online games that I've played, where I've talked to people who have never left their hometown,
Mm-hmm.
maybe gone 50 miles from
From
their
where they were
home,
born.
from where they were born.
Yeah.
And their view of the world is so small. And the thing is when you don't have a lot of experience and your view of the world is tiny, it is incredibly easy for that fear to eclipse everything.
Right.
It encircles your world view, and it to the point where it will almost gobble it up.
Yeah, you can't see through the onion.
Yeah, exactly. You can't see through the onion. And we've had this talk before, not on the podcast, but
Right. This is a dead horse conversation.
Yeah, this is a dead horse conversation. But
yeah,
going away and forcing yourself, sometimes voluntarily, not voluntarily,
mm-hmm.
To try new things and to meet people and to eat their food, sit down with them and talk. Why is it that they think the way they do? What loves and fears and joys and sadnesses do they have in their lives? And then you go, wow, they're just like me. And they also have different
there's more about these people that's similar than is dissimilar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except for the Dutch. No. I digress. I'm kidding. I love the Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also easy for us to say yes about all these people except for,
right.
And that's just part of being human. I was being a smartass, just to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is the answer, but it is so hard to getting new experiences is the answer to alleviating that fear, but it is so hard for people that are fearful to actually go out and do that.
Right. It's that it's their jumping off point, which leads to what's sometimes referred to as the leap of abstraction or the leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get from where you are, a relative place of comfort, even if it's actually uncomfortable, it's your normal, and it's hard to convince people to leave that shell, like trying to convince someone to leave a bad relationship,
Yeah.
They'll say oh, he beats me because he loves me. No, he doesn't. If he loved you, he wouldn't beat you.
Yeah, and that will be another topic one day, because I actually on Facebook there was a situation a couple of days ago where one of the groups that I belong to, there was a girl who basically, this morning it was yelling, screaming, punching holes in walls,
Chad shit. Stupid Chad shit.
Well, stupid Chad shit, but she's in this relationship with this guy. They're living in the same place,
mm-hmm.
and everyone was doing he may not have hit you now, but this
but he
this
will.
could be.
This is the precursor.
This is indicative of a problem.
Yeah,
and you need to be aware of this. And look, I understand you don't want to leave, but have a plan. Have a bug out plan.
Yeah, man. Know that you have options.
It's get worse.
Yeah.
And
unless y'all get therapy or something, but even then, you have to make active decisions to make your world a better place.
Exactly, and that led to many things being said in this entire conversation. One day we'll get to all that.
Yeah.
But to go back to the Alan Watts talk, and by the way,
mm-hmm.
guys, if you look up Alan Watts, WATTS, if anyone actually listens to this podcast,
mm-hmm.
And look on YouTube for him, he's got a metric ton of things that he has done talks about.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll put some links in the description when I post this on YouTube as well.
And then the third quote that he had that you also put up there,
mm-hmm.
between black and white is the spectrum. And that is such a beautiful thing, because the answer is not always binary. It's never binary.
Yeah, it hardly ever is.
It hardly ever is. The black and white, solution to everything doesn't exist. The black and white solution is never good for a large number of people.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we as Americans, and I'm not going to say just we as Americans, because that's
it's too exclusionary. Yeah.
It's too exclusionary. People.
Yeah.
People want the easy way out every time.
Yeah.
Why does my job, why did my mining job in West Virginia disappear? Well, it's easy to go, oh, it's these foreigners taking your job, because that doesn't really require you to do anything other than hate people.
Right. Right.
It's
very
much harder
easy.
to go, well, Bob, let me tell you.
Mhm.
It's much cheaper for your company to now have two people working to level a mountainside with equipment than it used to be 20 years ago, where they needed more people and there wasn't really equipment to do this. Automation has basically gotten rid of your job. And you wishing for the good old days and you getting your job back because your dad had it and his dad before him and his dad before him, because you guys are coal miners and it's in your blood. It's not coming back, man. And I hate to tell you that. I hate to be the one that says this way of life that you've heard about for the past 4 generations is gone and it ain't ever coming back to you. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that this dream that they were sold, this American ideal, doesn't really exist anymore for them.
Well, what you brought up too is actually an old American folktale. John Henry, if you're
Yeah.
familiar with that. Like,
Oh, hell yeah.
He was the guy that went in and essentially tried to beat a train.
Yeah, he basically the idea of man versus machine,
Yeah,
and
that
machine
was
wins
like
out.
that was like the first, I guess, pre-cyberpunkian folktale.
Yeah,
Man versus machine.
I still remember John Henry driving steel rails,
Yeah.
and the story that I remembering is basically, he tried so hard his heart exploded.
Yeah,
And of course they did it in more flowery terms,
right.
but the machine just kept going.
Yeah, the
And
machine doesn't have to
that's-
stop.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't need brakes. There are so many more benefits to a machine than a person.
Sadly.
Does that mean that several people lose that job? Yes, but guess what? Capitalism don't give a fuck.
Especially if they can pay one admin to do the job of 20 20 field engineers, what do you think they're going to choose?
Oh, exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
that's just business, sadly, at the end of the day. But what we have to do as individuals is figure out how we're going to adapt to this world, just as we always have. Like, we don't have elevator operators anymore. We don't have milkmen. We don't have all these other antiquated jobs, and with the exception of Oregon and New Jersey, we don't have gas pump attendants.
Yeah, no.
The
Although
world has moved on.
I remember as a kid, we still actually had a milkman.
Wow, you're that white?
But let me explain, though. Let me explain.
I gotta hear this.
This is when I lived in Killeen when both my parents were stationed at Fort Hood.
Gotcha.
The milkman actually worked for it was kind of like a milk, like they distributed not just milk, but they also like other foods. So they would basically take your order
like
and
the
bring
Schwann
it.
trucks.
Kind of like Schwann before Schwann.
Okay, so pre Swan.
Yeah, yeah, but I still remember that, and after we left Killeen, we never had that again. But no, you're right. We got rid of these jobs because it didn't make economic sense.
Right,
but
right.
you can't you trying to explain that goes into the spectrum of why it doesn't exist anymore, and people don't want that.
Well,
it's much
that was like
easier.
John Steinbeck had a few novels around those topics too. But carry on. Yeah.
But so this idea of the spectrum, I think, is beautiful because we tend to miss out on that. If you look at our schools, like our education these days, and you just finished it, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but even now in my college courses, I don't explain my answers. I just give them, multiple choice. Is this the right answer? There you go. And sometimes, I'm not going to say all the time, but sometimes I'm like, yeah, but there's more nuance to it. There's more to that story than just me checking this little box, and like, there's the answer. But they don't want that, because
for me as a person of very complicated background and extraction, it can be a problem where they want you to fit neatly into a box. And my situation is not unique. Other people from different countries have similar scenarios wherein, like, I try to think of people from South America, people from Mexico, people that fall under the banner of Latinx. Those people that fall under that banner have individual identities, individual countries, and their experiences aren't just one giant thing. If you take someone from Peru and you try to compare their life experience to someone that grew up in Baja, those aren't the same life experiences. Those aren't the
No.
same cultures. Those aren't the same things. And with Southeast Asia, you know, in my situation, being from the Philippines, my life experiences will obviously have some parallels and similarities to other Southeast Asian countries, but I couldn't tell you the first thing of what it's like to grow up in Vietnam.
Yeah. And yet, and I find it funny, you know, we learn like this part of the world, Southeast Asia, this part of the world, Indochina,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Eurasia, and we label these things because it's useful. It is useful in a
It's politically
geographic
useful and
sense.
geographically.
It's
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, but unfortunately, we use it past the geographical and the politically, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we're like, well, we tend to look at groups that we are not familiar with and we lump them all in. I've got a
Right.
great
You want to
story
make them as
about
a monolith instead of
no,
instead of
exactly.
individuals. Yeah.
And you know, the thing is you being Filipino, if you look at all of the European countries, and not just European, but if you look at all of the influences from Southeast Asia
Mm-hmm.
and all of the influences from Europe, colonization, isn't it great? And America,
Yeah.
the Philippines is actually this huge fucking melting pot in the South compared to the rest of Southeast Asia.
Right. We're a
You
little
know,
different.
yeah, a little bit different. So of course your experiences aren't going to be the same as someone, you know, Thailand
Mm-hmm.
or Burma,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or any
Or even
other
Malaysia,
part,
even
or
though that's
Malaysia,
fairly close, and Indonesia, like, even though those countries are
Singapore.
close. Yeah, yeah, like but they're close, but what's the old saying? Close but no cigar.
Yeah, close but no cigar.
Yeah.
Um, but we label them. So my story on this, I'm going to try and do this to where I don't want to, I want to protect the innocent here.
Yeah. Or the
I
guilty.
used to, well, or the guilty, because I can at least understand where she was coming from.
Uh huh.
So I used to work at a place, at this place.
Totally not a
the-
strip club. Totally not a strip club.
Totally not a strip club. The woman in charge, we will call her.
Madam.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to call her Madam. we will call her A. Just call her A.
Okay.
She was in charge of this place. Also working at this place were two individuals that I'm still friends with that we will call.
Biko and
We-
Siko.
No, we will call one R and we will call the other J.
Okay.
And there were a lot of people that would come in from this place whose primary language was Spanish. And one day, A made this comment because there was a group of guys that would come in every Friday. Once again, I'm not going to name this business, but you can probably figure out what it is
Yeah.
to conduct business.
Yeah.
And A made this comment about she referred to them all as Mexicans because in her head
That's all
they
there is.
spoke Spanish,
Yeah.
therefore they're Mexican.
Like when
and
Fox
this-
News calls any country in South America a Mexican country.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I can understand where she was coming from in that because I could at least step into where she grew up and her experiences, and I can be like, I understand why you see the world that way.
Yeah.
And not just that. There's a country called Spain where they speak Spanish.
Right,
That's
there's
in
that.
Europe.
There's that.
Well, this offended J and R because J and R are actually Mexican and they speak Spanish.
Mhm.
You know, they're both American Mexicans or Mexican Americans, depending upon how you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
And Jay got really, really upset with us. And I was like, look, man, I understand that this pisses you off, but let me ask you a question. He's like, okay. And I said, if a Chinese dude, a Japanese dude, and a Korean dude were to come in here right now, are you going to refer to them as the Chinese dude, the Korean dude, and the Japanese dude? No. You're going to call them a bunch of chinos. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, but that's different.
Right, right. We make exceptions in the abstracts that we live in, that's the abstracts we're familiar with.
Exactly. And you know, he was laughing about it, but he understood my point that I was getting to, where I'm
Yeah.
like, when all you see south of the border is Mexico, when that's all you go to, when you just go to Mexican restaurants, you tend to get this idea of, well,
A monolith.
this huge monolith, you know, exactly.
Yeah.
And Jay knows that there's a distinction between Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, but in his head, he'll still call them chinos,
Mhm.
you know, no matter where they're from, you know. And you're right. It's all based off of our abstractions are based off of our experiences.
Yeah.
What we're comfortable with, But this idea, God, this idea of the spectrum, this idea of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's not black
I
and
really
white. There's a
think
lot in between.
it isn't black and white. There's a lot in between, and I think we need to start addressing that. We need to start looking at our education and talking about this. We need to start, because I can't just go to a politician right now and be like, look, this isn't a black or white. There's no black or white here. There's no easy solution. There's no 5-second, 10-second, 15-second soundbite here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very complicated, nuanced issue. Why don't we start talking about it like that? And the politician's just going to look at me like I'm a dumbass because he wants votes. She wants votes.
Right. They go straight for the blood.
Exactly. She needs to be able to go to the masses and be able to go, here's your answer.
Yeah.
Not break it down in a fucking 30-page spreadsheet, not break it down in a fucking pie chart. Yeah. They just want to be told that it's not...
They want a quick answer.
They want a quick answer, but also they want to be told it's not your fault.
Right. They don't want to take responsibility. They just want to say, hey, we're here stateless, and somehow this all just happened overnight.
People don't want to pay for anything. They don't want to suffer. They don't want to be the ones to have to give things up.
Yeah.
That's
not the American way.
John Cleese, actually, I saw an interview with him a couple of years ago.
It feels like years ago now, though.
I want to say it was a couple of years ago, during this whole Brexit thing, what isn't going to happen. And John Cleese basically made this comment of like, I'm leaving the UK because, and it was kind of telling. He's doing this interview with a journalist. Mm-hmm. This is being broadcasted. And this journalist kept trying to get him in these aha, got you moments. And he kept trying to say, this was his point. You basically boiled down Brexit into yes or no, stay or leave.
Right.
And you can't address it. You basically are looking to just take a fucking sword and cut through the Gordian knot. And this isn't that kind of problem. This is a nuanced issue. There are many solutions and, many ways of looking about it. There are many problems that we're trying to address, and you're looking for a one-size-fits-all, and it doesn't work. And none of the politicians would say that because that doesn't work.
Right.
That's not sexy.
They're working on the assumption that everybody is seeking binaries only and is too bereft to explore nuance.
Exactly. Well, because who's got time for that, man? I'm going to go home and watch American Gladiators. I don't want to watch politicians fucking, wax poetically for 6 hours.
I guess the more modern one is American Ninja Warrior.
Hey, you know what, man? American Gladiators was first. Fuck all you pretenders.
Well, I do have to say though, we're almost at an hour 20, so we should probably wrap this up because we'll still talk after this is over. But I got to eventually go to the restroom again, and we should probably try to end this on some sort of a note, right?
Yeah, we should. I
got the quote this week because you got the quote last week.
You know what? Go for it, man.
Well, I don't want to cut off your point. I want you to be able to.
Well, no. But I mean that at the end of the day, this whole. And I don't know what caused it. I really don't. I'm not an expert, and I know dozens of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people have offered their own explanation as to why our news like has just gotten chopped down further and further and further. 30 seconds to 20 seconds to 10-second sound bites.
Right.
And the problem is nothing gets solved that way because
it's a cycle of outrage.
Yeah, it's a cycle of outrage, but 10 seconds, you can't really offer a fucking fix for anything.
Right.
Other than
you can barely talk about the problem in that amount of time. Yeah.
And in 10 seconds, the best you're going to do to be able to offer, any kind of hope is just put a Band-Aid on it. I mean, like literally 10 seconds. There you go.
I mean, the arm's been severed, but you put a Band-Aid on it, so there's that.
Exactly. We need to start looking at spectrums. We need to start looking at nuances. We need to start just expanding our ideas of how to address problems, how to talk about problems, and how to solve them. Because it's not just about, it isn't just about, one or two political issues. It's about everything.
Yeah.
And to a degree,
it's almost like things are interconnected.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where it's like nothing is black and white. Systemic racism in America, yes, it exists, but the ways to solve it isn't a black and white issue.
Right.
There are many ways to go about it, and some of those are more harmful than others. Some of those are more possible than others. Some of those will be, achieved faster than others.
Yeah.
But you can't just say, "Oh, we got to do this and go." No, we need to actually discuss it.
Well, it's almost like that point I made about truth and reconciliation might eventually lead us towards a better understanding of each other and ourselves.
Yeah.
Message.
The more you know. We're gonna get sued for that.
It's okay. They don't exist anymore anyway.
You're right. They don't.
They don't, because decency died a long time ago, along with all these dead horses we're dragging out.
Exactly. Where are we storing the dead horses? Are they like in a cave somewhere? Are we just finding them on the road?
That's got to smell great. No, they're hidden underneath all those mailboxes you showed me earlier.
Yeah, no shit.
Christ. All right. Well, this is probably going to be about as good a stopping point as ever. So let me do the wheel of morality spin, and I'll go ahead and read today's quote, and then we will say goodbye. Does that sound fair?
That sounds good, man.
All right. So this week's quote I'm going to take from the band of warrior poets, otherwise known as Rat. These forebears from the days of glorious hair metal gave us this song called Round and Round, and I think it does a great job of illustrating the pitfalls of circular logic. So I'm going to read the last 3 lines from their hit. What comes around goes around. I'll tell you why. Why? Round and round. There you go.
Oh, so this isn't a flatbed truck. Just to add to this, but I need another. How do I add another page to this?
Oh, you just right click, and then you get to add a page. I'll add it for you. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
New slide. There you go. And then let me transition over, so we'll end it on something interactive. Make it happen.
Just because that apparently is happening in New Jersey, Morristown, New Jersey. So apparently New Jersey is not one of the places where they're stopping, or maybe they were just lying about stopping. But that looks like 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 or 7 mailboxes that they're just pulling out of the ground.
Round and round.
Round and round, baby.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.
After hours starts now.